TJ Paul with HP Graphics here. Just going to demonstrate wrap install technique. It's not the only way to do it. It's just the one that I think is a little bit easier for just about anybody to do. It's a technique using soap and water. Just got a squirt bottle filled with water and just a few drops of soap, maybe just enough to tint the water a little bit. So one of the things is temperature makes a big difference. So you kind of want to do it in the morning or in the evening if it's during the summer. If you got an air-conditioned shop, that's even better. So before you start prepping your surface to get it ready to clean and install the wrap, a good idea, now I'm not going to do this and I'll show you why later, but you don't have to have all of these rivets in your car, especially if you're doing this yourself at your shop. You can drill these out, but just make sure if you leave any metal shavings from that, you clean those off really good while you're wiping the car down. I've got a little tool that's really handy to have that'll go over the rivets, but taking the rivets out is good because it makes the wrap a little easier to put on, and if you want to take a panel off and work on it later, it's also nice to have that rivet already on top of the wrap. You're going to want to leave at least enough just to kind of keep it together, especially where the seams run, like right here. You know, I would probably leave a couple rivets here just to make sure everything stays in place, and when you put the wrap on and then bolt it all up, the body panels don't move. But that is another tip. It's taking out a lot of the rivets. It's going to make it a little bit easier when you put the wrap on. But we got a different method we're going to use, and I'll show that later. Here, the first thing that we want to do is just clean all the dirt and dust, because all that stuff, whenever you just try to stick a wrap over it, it's going to show little bits of trash underneath the wrap. The main thing is get it nice and clean first, and you know, try not to have it be too hot outside or anything like that, because it just makes it a little harder to put on. And anytime you're cleaning the car in general, whether it's your everyday car or your race car, it's a good idea to start from the top and then work your way down. So whatever dirt you got up here, you're inevitably going to just knock it off down on the rest of the car. So I like to start with the top, especially if you've got any metal shavings from a new body or something like that. You want to try to get rid of those. Okay, so we've wiped the car off and it's a brand new body, but just the little bit of dust that settled on the car since the body got installed, that's what we got off. Now at this point, you can be done because a little bit of fibers from a towel is not going to be a huge deal on a race car wrap. But just for good measure, we're going to go over it with the microfiber towel. And being that it's a new body, you don't really have to use alcohol, but it's a good idea to do it anyway. And if you've got a body that, you know, maybe you've run a few races and you've got some oil or grease on it, rubbing alcohol is going to be good so the wrap has a good surface to stick to. I like to use 91%. This is what we use on all of our vehicle wraps, whether it's a race car or if it's just an everyday up and down the road vehicle. So that's what we like to use. This is a little bit stronger. I'm just going to go over the whole car, get all that lint that's left over off, and any grease or handprints that might have gotten on it. We're going to knock that off too. So I don't know if it's going to show up, but you can see where I've just kind of gone over it with the lint-free towel, and it's pretty slick. There's nothing on it. And then here's where I wiped it with the white towel earlier, and there's still like a lot of lint on the car. Another good idea, if you've got like a hood or something like that, where you've got a panel overlapping another panel, you might want to clean where those two panels overlap. It'll just help your finished product a little better. All right, so it's a lot easier to put a wrap on if you got some extra hands to help. I'm going to show that you can do it by yourself. I'm going to tear off a little bit and expose a little bit of the wrap here. I'm going to let the wrap hang past the cutoff point here because the wraps are going to be longer and taller than they have to be to allow for any just kind of tolerance. So we're going to stick that little spot there to hold the wrap, and we're going to unroll it. And I'll tear another little spot out. You just peel the wrap back, by rolling your thumb over it and roll that edge back, and then you can just cut a little half moon out of the wrap like that, and you've got something to stick to the car. Go a few feet, just do it again. And again. Now the wrap's not lined up, it's just kind of stuck and hung on the side of the car. We're going to go over here in a little bit, just the best way to line the wrap up and make sure you get it where you want it. But we're going to do that when we got some more hands and do it using the soap and water method that we talked about earlier. Alright, so at this point, if you're doing it by yourself, you peel the wrap back to a point where you're ready to work, cut the paper off, and then just install the wrap one half at a time. But we've got some help, so we're going to do it the way I like to do it. Courtney, my lovely assistant Courtney is going to grab the soap and water. And just going to wet the surface where the wrap's going. So you really can't get it too wet. If you do, it is just going to take a little bit longer to dry, but you'd rather have that than you would to have it stick before you're ready. So we're going to start peeling the wrap. And Courtney's going to take it, walk it on. Real important now not to drop it. If you put your hands out like this, kind of keeps it from sagging in the middle. You don't want the wrap to touch itself, and you don't want it to touch the dirt. A nice even spray. Just the whole wrap. So now we're going to take the top of the wrap and find some kind of straight line like the top of the door and line it up off of that. Knowing that you're going to have some wrap hanging off in the front, you're going to have some hanging off in the back. All right. That's a little high there. Let's get it a little more wet. Good thing is it's a little bit too dry and it's not moving around like you want. Just add water. So in a car like Alex's, where the rear quarter panel goes up like this, you can raise the wrap up because it is taller than it has to be. But we've got black up here, and the quarter panel's black, and that's kind of where the sheet metal stops. So I think we're just going to go with this and do it with that top edge of the door. Obviously we're hanging off too far back here because that's getting cut off, so we're going to pull it off and move the whole thing forward. Watch your logo.
All right, I'm good now. A little high.
I think once you pull that up right there, it'll be perfect. So the thing you want to do now, before you start squeegeeing or anything, is you want to make sure none of your logos are getting cut off. This one's good here. You want to watch out for the tire cutout. And our quarter panel ends here. So we've got plenty of room around this logo. The number is good because there's the end of the quarter panel, or the door there for the tire cutout. The number's not running too far down. The end of the metal is right about here. These logos are good. There's the wheel cut out there. So this wrap is pretty much where we want. So now we're ready to start putting it on. before we do, the way the tires stick out on this, we're gonna go ahead and cut some of this away to make it a little easier to put on. Okay, so the wheel's sticking out, it's gonna make it a little harder to put on. So we're gonna go ahead and cut this section away. One thing I wanna point out too, if you get your wrap and you see that you've got neon overlays, but all of a sudden they're kind of missing from a spot, we kind of leave little areas here where it's gonna be wasted anyway. We'll conserve a little material, and then plus it helps things line up better when you don't have one big solid piece. So we'll do things like this that allow us to work different pieces of the overlays a little easier. You definitely don't want to cut too much when you're cutting this away, especially if you need to shift the wrap a little bit later, but you also want to get the wheel out of the way. So you want to be careful. One thing you can do is kind of come in the middle, cut down so you can see the tire. And just make sure you don't cut your tire. Cutting that out. Just being real careful, because especially on these wheel cutouts, they'll kind of turn in down here at the bottom. So you want to make sure you leave enough hanging over that you're going to cover that. Now the wrap's going to be able to lay down around that area a little better. Same thing on the front tire, it's sticking out a little bit. It's going to make things a little harder to put on. I can see a really good definition of where the cutout is, so I kind of know a lot easier where to cut. Once the wrap is on there, you don't need as much help. Two people can do it. One person could even do it at this point, but Courtney's going to help me. What we're going to do is going to be the hinge method. We're going to put the wrap on 2 pieces at a time, or in 2 halves. We'll peel the wrap back. The number's a good reference point. We'll peel back 2. And we're getting a lot drier than we want to be. We're going to add some water. Courtney's going to hold the wrap away from the car. And then I'm going to start to work my squeegee. You want to use a felt tip squeegee, something that's not going to scratch the wrap. If you don't have one, you can wrap a paper towel or a rag around a regular squeegee. So I'm going to start working it up and down, pushing all the water out. On street stocks like this, you don't have one solid flat panel. That's a lot easier to do, like on a late model. So I like to work to these body lines. This one here, this one here. I'm going to kind of work that out. And then I can come back later and work from this point down and this point up. When you're working your squeegee, kind of want to think of it like a lawnmower. You're going to keep going over the same spot and move down just a little bit as you go, instead of just kind of being more random, because you'll get a lot more water and bubbles in it in places that you don't want. So this is a good spot here. A little closer. So we've worked up and we've got some rivets here. So I'm going to start squeegeeing it down. As you'll see, it's not really laid down right here yet. That's okay. We're going to come back later when it's dry, and we're going to do a little cutting, a little trimming, and we're going to work it down around the rivets. But the part about doing it in the soap and water is you just get to be a little more patient in how you do that. I work that center panel above and below the body lines. So now I'm going to start working my way up. These rivets up here at the top, I'm not super concerned about the wrap laying down them around just yet. So I'm just going to work, make sure we don't have any water or bubbles in the flat part here. Done the front half, and now we're going to hinge and do the back half of the wrap. peeling it back to the point where we started when we did the front half. And in the time that we were wrapping and squeezing out the front half, the back half was dried. So we're just adding a little water, make life a little easier. All right. And we're just going to repeat the process that we did on the front and squeegee it and work our way to the back. Again, since this is a street stock, I'm kind of working on this nice flat spot right here, and I can come back later and work down. To do that, all I've got to do is lift up on the bottom of the wrap. Just want to make this spot real pretty for right now. So, come a little closer. So here we're hitting another body line like we did on the fender. As you can see, there's a body line there. You got rivets here. You're not trying to make it look like paint just yet. You just kind of want to get it smooth around that area with no wrinkles. And we can come back later and we can tighten all that up. I've got the center section looking good, and I'm going to start working on the area above the body line here and below the body line here. So if you got a spot like this, where you've got an air bubble trapped, because maybe the wrap's gotten a little drier than you were ready, you can always take it. Since you've worked all the middle out, you can pull back and push that, and it's gone. All right, so let's say you've got a little bubble that's trapped because it got a little drier than you were ready for it. So if you get one like this, you can push on it, put some pressure, and then just poke a little hole in it and pop it, just like a pimple. So the soap and water method is going to take longer just because you've got to wait for the water to dry. But if you're not a professional wrap installer, maybe this is your first time, I'm going to show you what's so awesome about using soap and water. So this is a sail panel decal. We're going to peel the backing paper off. This is the area where it's going. I'll spray it. Take the decal. Now I can put it on there and I can slide it around anywhere I want. If it's sticking a little more than I want, I can add water. And then once I get it in position I like, bit. What we're gonna do, squeegee the water out. And you're done. Where it gets a little bit more difficult on soap and water is getting it to lay down around these rivets. We've already gone and installed the wrap on the other side. All that time this has been drying over here, so this is going to be a little easier to work with. Now I've got a tool. I said earlier you can take out the rivets. It's going to make your job a lot easier. I've got a tool that's a little expensive, but it's really awesome, and I'm going to show you how I use it. It's called a Rolly Pro. So this is a Rolly Pro. It's I think about $40 if you get it from Fellers or any kind of wrap supply company. This is just a little torch you get from Ace Hardware, and propane bottle. I like to get these from Walmart. They got really good prices on these. So you've got these rivets here. Your squeegee won't lay it down. The Rolly Pro kind of won't really lay it down. Just put a little heat to it. And there you go. it's laid down around the rivet. And you can do that around each one of them. It kind of takes a little practice knowing how much heat to apply. It takes a lot to melt or burn the wrap, so you need to be careful, but you don't need to be too timid or worry too much about that. So I can go down the card and lay these rivets down just like that. Super easy. Another thing you can do is cut the wrap around the rivets. It's a little more messy. Really like using this. So earlier when we were wrapping, we came across this body line here. I'm just going to let this Roller Pro lay it down a little more, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to cut it. What the Roller Pro does is that, you know, it gets it dry for one thing, and also you're going to need somewhere for all this air to go. So we left a little loose material around this rivet right here. So we got a rivet right here, and there's a little slack around it. That's good. And we're going to got this little body line here, and that's kind of where we're going to push all the water and all the air. There, just like that. We're going to do that all the way down. And it's important to do this before you trim the wrap, because when you heat it, the material shrinks just a little bit. So if I were to have cut this body line and then used the Roller Pro in the heat, the wrap would have sucked away from that edge a little bit. But doing it this way, now when I cut the wrap, it's going to go all the way to the edge of the metal. So I'm just going to hold my knife and use the edge of the metal as a straight edge and just cut down. Sometimes it helps if you want. You can put your finger, just kind of help guide you. Just be careful not to cut your finger. Another thing you can do is you can press your squeegee up against it and let that follow. Just like that. All right, and then you just squeegee the wrap into that and you get a nice clean cut and a clean finish.